everyone, my name is Michaela, but you can call me Mick, and welcome back to my channel. I'm really under the personal belief that to be the best writer you can be, you also have to be a good critical reader. Unfortunately for me, it sometimes takes a while to break out of that critical reading lens. And I've really been spending the past couple of years trying to get better at balancing the reading for fun and reading to be a better writer. But I love studying story. I just can't get enough. And that's exactly why I started this YouTube channel. On this channel, I plan to be doing more book deep dives, but before I do that, I wanted to make a video showing how you guys can do book deep dives on your own at home. Because I may not always pick the book that you want to study or even the genre you want to be studying. So I want to make sure that you all have the skills to do this as well. So in this video, we're going to be talking about the different ways that you can read to be a better writer. First, let's start off with how to pick the book you want to read. And we can go a couple different ways with this. I really think there are about 3 different avenues. You can either pick a book that you like, a book that you don't like, or a book that has the genre that you are wanting to write or trying to write in. When you pick a book that you like or that you think you like, you could reread a favorite or pick up a book on your TBR that really you know you're gonna love. That allows you to answer questions like, what did I like about this book? What does the author do that I want to emulate, whether that is their prose and their writing voice, or how they structure the story, or how they world build it in a certain way. World build it? World built. Built the world. I think built the world would be the past tense of that. But you're answering questions of, what is it doing well? How do I want to emulate this? If you're strategically picking up a book that you did not like to reread, or picking up a book that you probably know that you won't like compared to others, you might be answering more questions like, what did I not like about this book? And what would I do differently? When picking based on genre, you're kind of answering all of these questions. You're answering, what did I like? What do I not like? What do I want to emulate? And what do I want to do differently? But you're also going to be answering the questions like, what genre expectations did this author stick to? Did I like that? Would I want to do something different? Or how did they subvert the genre expectations? And did I like that? Would I want to try to do something similar, or would I do it in a different way? You're reading more with that genre lens in mind. All these avenues are a valid way to pick a book that you want to analyze, but I want to at least start off with like a cautionary warning that I personally don't think every book should be analyzed. For example, I gave Fourth Wing 5 stars. I loved it. I really did. But I don't think it's like the gold standard of writing, world building, structure, etc. I did love it though, deeply, but that's because I thought it was fun and immersive, and I honestly haven't had that much fun reading a book since the Divergent series, and I loved it so much I now have a Best Guys War College sweatshirt. So for those reasons, I probably wouldn't study Fourth Wing, because if I did start to look at it that critically and under a microscope, I would lose the joy that I had while reading the series. And I think that's the fine line you have to start to take, because once you start reading with a critical lens, at least for me, it's pretty hard to take the hat off. The first category of how to study books would be to study while reading, just to actively have all of your thoughts flowing while you're reading the book. I think this method is best if you are reading the book for the first time. 2 of my favorite ways to study while reading is to build on your vocabulary and to annotate. The amount of times that I'm reading a sentence and I realize that I actually don't know what a word means, It's a little too much. It's a little too much for me to personally admit as a creative writing and English major. I feel like I used to have a great vocabulary while going to school. It's been a couple years since I've been in school. My vocabulary has gone downhill. My brain has obviously been making space for other things, like knowledge about every single survivor in Big Brother season. This is another reason why I really love reading on my Kindle, because if I don't know a word, I can just highlight it and then I get the dictionary definition. And then if I'm reading a physical book, I just look the word up on my phone. And what I've started to do is keep a journal with all of the words that I don't know, and I write it out and I write out the definition, and then I write the sentence it was used in. It might seem like overkill, but being able to increase your vocabulary is a highly underrated skill for writers. This can be so helpful when you reach that grueling line edit stage and you are agonizing for days over what words are the right words. And I have found that this has really helped. Another great way to study is to annotate while reading. There are a lot of different ways to annotate, and one quick YouTube search will show you that. How I annotate changes for every single book that I'm reading, but I can show you an example of how I'm annotating Light Lark right now for a future book deep dive. Now, I'm annotating Light Lark not because I think I will like this book. Candidly, I think I will not like this book, and I've heard a lot of controversial opinions, which is why I wanted to take a stab at it for myself and see if those opinions are true and if there are things that I might do differently. So how I'm annotating this book is a bit different from how I would annotate a book that I consider to be a gold standard or one that I would really like. For this book, I do a couple different things. I am using highlighters to do inline highlighting, and I'm also writing on the page, marking the page, as well as doing tabs and sticky notes. It's a lot. I've only done a couple pages here as I film this video, but I wanted to show you where my head is at. Okay, so I wanted to kind of break down how I'm annotating Light Lark for you in this way. As I said, I'm using highlighters, physical tabs, and symbols, along with these really cool transparent sticky notes that I can write on and just stick all my thoughts onto the page. Let's start with what I'm highlighting. So I'm using a pink highlighter to highlight things like plot points and structure, and I'm actually correlating that with a gold tab because yes, when I annotate, I do try to color code to my book. It is very satisfying for me, but I wanted to be able to tab and highlight the plot points and structure. So really what I'm doing is I'm taking a mix of what I usually do, which is like Save the Cat and the 6-act structure, and I'm just trying to plot all those points along the way and then make sure that I can visibly see them throughout the book, because I'm also looking at structure when I'm trying to analyze this book. I'm then doing like a purple, but it kind of turns up like gray on my book color for setting and world building. Setting is a main part of any book, but since this is a fantasy book, I know that I want to pay attention to any world building element or any setting element that the author talks about. Unfortunately, this is kind of relating to a lot of the inconsistencies and questions that I have with the book. And I do have a tab, it's like a dark maroon tab for any of those scenes. And usually I'm taking like a translucent sticky note and I'm writing a lot of information on there about that scene and why I have all these questions and what's going on. I also have a symbol for that down here of just like a little exclamation point just so I can, tell what's going on. I'm highlighting in blue anything about a character, so that is character description, how other people think about the character, how the character thinks about themselves, anything to do with character, I'm highlighting in blue. And then one of my favorite things to do is actually to highlight about the writing, voice, and style, so I'm doing that in a light green. And that's fun because I like to try to see what is this author's style? Right now I'm noticing with Alex Astor, the author of Light Lark, that she uses a lot of metaphors, and so I've been highlighting anytime that she's using that. So for the tabs, I'm doing the plot points and structure. I'm tabbing anything that I feel like is inconsistent, that I have questions about, or that I also am realizing is a plot hole. So I'm tabbing that because I'm using that specifically for my book deep dive video. You can also tab this way if this is something you are trying to analyze, but I don't always analyze using that. I'm also doing a deep read of what I would change. Since I went into this book knowing that this book might not be something that I'm going to love, and I wanted to kind of read it for myself to see, I already went in with the notion of, okay, if I might not like this, what would I do differently? And that's what I'm tabbing with a bright red. And then I'm tabbing in gray scenes to dive deeper, which we're going to talk about in a moment. So anything that I might want to take a closer look at, usually after I'm done reading the book, and usually I'll do my diving with a computer or a notebook, and you'll see how. And I'm also doing symbols, so I do have this like circle with an exclamation point here for the inconsistencies, questions, and plot holes that will correlate with this tab, just so I can realize or see, visually where it is on the page that I'm tabbing. I also do like a bit of a circle with an E for any editing issues I spot. This is just me being crazy. I like to do that. Yeah, sorry. And then I do a heart for anything I do like, and then kind of like this no symbol for anything that I don't like. So that is how I'm annotating Light Lark at the moment. And if you annotate, you might realize that is a little bit different from what you do. I think a lot of times when someone is purely annotating because they are reading, they are just marking things that they like. They're following like a little plot thread, and they're just leaving like their own personal remarks. But when I am annotating to be a better writer, I'm really looking at it from an editor's lens a bit, or from a lens of, okay, if I was writing this and this was like a draft of mine, how would I change this? How would I put things into my own voice? How would I fix some of these world building problems if I feel like there are any? I'm really just digging in deep. You can also read books with a certain lens in mind. So you can read it for character, you can read it for structure, you can read it for tone or genre, really anything. You can just take that lens and then only annotate or write notes about that lens in particular. That's like some of the book deep dives I've already done on my channel. So we have done the structure deep dive for the first book in the Shadow and Bone series, where I did a part 1 and part 2, and I solely looked at that book through a structure lens. That's how I annotated it. That's how I put it into the story grid. That's how I used the notes. You could also go back then and maybe just reread it from a character perspective. That means you're going to be highlighting things about character descriptions. This is what I did for Six of Crows. I was highlighting anytime someone talked about a character, so what they really thought about character. I was highlighting character description. I was following the character arcs. So you can do all of that in one, or you can just pick one thing and then read with that lens in mind. Another great thing to do is to even zoom in more, like a hyper zoom. And that's why I tab, right now with Light Lark, I'm tabbing it in gray, of the scenes that I want to re-examine. So I will do that. I will read a full book, annotate it. I'm tabbing the scenes that I want to zoom in, and I will write on the tab what I'm zooming in about. And things you could zoom in for could be just a specific chapter. So that could be like with the Raven Boys. I just really analyzed the first chapter and the prologue of the Raven Boys. So you can zoom in that way. You could also zoom in specifically on dialogue, whether you like that dialogue or don't like that dialogue. It's just a good reference point for you to go back and then to kind of analyze it. But how I like to do it is I just like to tab it and then go back, and then I take a ton of notes. So I just kind of like word vomit my thoughts. I'm, really breaking it apart. There are times, yes, where I have literally retyped out like a dialogue section. This is like overkill, but this is how my brain works. I've retyped out like a dialogue section or a scene. on Word, I print it out, and then I just scribble all over the place. It is so, so, so helpful. On top of maybe retyping something out that I really like or want to dissect and I take a ton of notes on it, I also like to rewrite a scene. And this can be a fun practice. I'm not rewriting it to publish it somewhere or recreate the story for my own. No, I'm just rewriting it as a writing exercise. When I go ahead and I tab things in this Scenes to Dive Deeper tab, like I'm doing right now in Lightlark, I will usually tab scenes that either are dialogue heavy. I'm just not really good at dialogue, I gotta be honest, and I really like to try to push myself to like recreate dialogue scenes in different ways. So I like to tab dialogue heavy scenes to go back and study them, as well as scenes with a lot of setting description, also scenes that I really loved, and scenes that I felt like were missing something. So these are all different ways to tab the Scenes to Dive Deeper, where I either want to take a lot of notes on them for myself and my writing practice, or actually rewriting as a scene. When I rewrite a scene, I like to try to rewrite something in my own voice. This helps me figure out what my voice even is. I feel like I've been on a journey with that lately with my writing project. That'll be a whole other video, but I like to rewrite something in my own voice. How would I describe this? How would I say what is going on? I also just like to push myself to maybe describe something I never have. So that could be like action scenes. I'm horrible at that. Let me push myself to, okay, now I read this action scene. I know what's going on. Let me push myself to rewrite this my way. Also just to push myself to get creative of how I could change it up. So if there was a scene that I felt like I was missing something, okay, I tabbed it. Now it's like, okay, Michaela, Miss Author, you thought something was missing here, right? How would you write it differently? So I just try to push myself in that way as well. And I find that either kind of retyping something and taking a ton of notes or rewriting a scene entirely is just a really great and fun writing exercise. So from this video, as you can see, there are a ton of ways that you can read to be a better writer. And we're going to take all of those methods and I'm going to be using them in a lot of my upcoming YouTube videos. So I am doing a book deep dive on Lightlark, so I am annotating for it right now. And we are going to be diving into it with a lot of these lenses. I'm going to be talking about a lot of topics. So I'll be able to show you some better examples of how I'm doing this with a legitimate book. But there's so many other ways that you can read to be a better writer. And that's what I love about writing. It seems like there are a lot of rules or things to follow or things to learn, and you will never stop learning if you want to be a better writer. Like there's always something new to learn. But what I love is not every rule or advice is prescriptive, and I never want any of you guys to take my advice as Bible or prescriptive because it's not. There are a million ways to do this amazing craft that we love, which is writing a book. I hope this was helpful in some way, and I would love to hear about any other methods that you take to think critically and read critically to be a better writer, or if there is a technique that you learned today that you can't wait to try out. Overall, thank you so much for watching another video on my channel. It has been just so much fun to just get to know you guys and to create this content for you, and I can't wait to just keep building this little community we have. So grab a book, grab some supplies, and get reading, and I hope to see you next time. Bye, writers!